Tell me if any of this feels relatable. School was easy for you. You got good grades without ever really trying, never doing homework, never studying. Everyone would always tell you that you have so much potential, if only you would just apply yourself. Your worth was tied directly to your grades. You were made to feel less than if you ever fell below some ridiculously high standard. Your self-esteem is low, like crazy low. And so you're constantly trying to prove yourself. And now you feel like you're not the person that you were supposed to be. If any of that resonated with you, then I think you should watch the rest of this because I know exactly how you feel and I want to talk about it today. So let's have a chat. When I was 8 years old, we took a bunch of tests in school and the results of those tests identified me as gifted, which basically just means that you have a higher than normal capacity for identifying patterns, learning, abstract thought, all that IQ bullshit. About 3% of the population will fall into this category and be labeled as gifted, and they will have special education requirements because of it. The problem here really is that once you are labeled from such a young age, your entire identity is now predicated on the fact that you are smart. Which doesn't really seem like a big deal, but it is, because you were essentially robbed of the opportunity to form your own identity because it was assigned for you by this gifted label. You never asked to take this test. You never asked to be gifted. You just are. But now, everyone is telling you that you're so smart, that you have so much potential, and that you should be doing better than everyone else around you who is not gifted. And now all of a sudden you have a world of adult expectations placed upon you. And let's just remember that we're talking about an 8-year-old child. Because the thing that people, especially parents, seem to forget about gifted kids is the fact that they are kids, and the only thing that kids need to be are kids, not future doctors or lawyers or mathematicians or engineers. But once you start filling their head with ideas of what they're supposed to be because of this label, they will believe you, because that's what kids do. They believe what adults tell them. So once you have been labeled and people start telling you all of these things, you start going through life with this huge cloud of expectation hanging over your head and you don't even realize it. Expectations which would be unrealistic even for an adult to achieve. But everyone keeps laying it on you because you're gifted and oh, you're so smart and you just need to apply yourself, right? But you keep doing it because you're gifted. And the only way that you know how to feel like you are worthy of love is by excelling academically. But here's the thing. One day, eventually, you're going to fail because everyone fails. And expecting someone, a child no less, to be perfect and exceptional at everything they do 100% of the time is an insane expectation. But that is the expectation that is placed on a gifted child. The problem is that this failure is not something that you will know how to deal with because you're not supposed to fail. And you never really have until this point, because everything came easy to you and you never had to work hard or study hard to understand things. Because when a gifted kid fails, it feels like the end of the world. And the subsequent feelings of shame, self-loathing, anxiety will form the foundation of this child's psyche for the rest of their lives. And so what you end up becoming is a burnt out adult, a floater, a disappointment, an underachiever, just existing in the constant hamster wheel of unmet expectations because you're supposed to be able to do everything, right? And so you feel lost because you're unable to cope with the loss of a life unlived, a life that you were told you were destined for, and that you believed was coming until it didn't. And now it feels too late to do anything about it. Digging yourself out of this hole feels insurmountable, so you don't. And instead, you just play video games, smoke, get addicted to drugs, porn, whatever, or worse, start thinking about ways of ending your own life, because what's the point? You're never going to achieve what you were supposed to achieve. The sad truth is that this is a very, very common story amongst gifted kids who are now gifted people. And so if you're watching this, maybe this story reflects your life, or at least parts of it. My own story looks a lot like this. And so I wanted to get into it because at the end of this, I want to talk about how I'm finally starting to heal from this gifted kid trauma. So bear with me till the end, because I think that this could be very helpful for you if you are suffering from the same stuff that I am. From grades 1 to 8, I attended, more like was put in, 4 different elementary schools, with my longest stint at a school being 3 years. And at each school, it would be the same story. I would get good grades because I'm in a new environment, and what else am I gonna do, right? Like, no friends, nothing to do, so fine, I'll do the schoolwork. And then I would start to get bored because school was understimulating, and so I would start messing around, being naughty, as they would say. And so my grades would suffer, my class behavior would suffer, and my parents would freak the fuck out. Oh, my kid is gifted, why is he doing so poorly? Oh, my kid is so smart, it must be the school's fault, he can't be doing this badly. I would get uprooted, and they would pluck me and send me to a different school to deal with me. No matter how much I protest, sprinkle in a little bit of undiagnosed ADHD, some crippling social anxiety, and severe self-esteem issues. And school became a daily hellscape for me. Because I don't think that it can be overstated just how traumatizing it is for a shy, introverted child to be plucked from their environment and put into a new one just because no one knew how to deal with me. Because I was different from the kids who were different. So my life as a kid became this nightmare Groundhog Day where I'm permanently the new kid out of school. And just when I would start to feel safe again, just when I would start to feel like a kid again, I'd go to sleep and oh fuck, it all just resets. And as a kid, you think that it's your fault because you were made to feel like it's your fault. Because you're so smart, you can't be struggling. Because you're just not applying yourself. Because you're just lazy. And instead of being celebrated for your successes and for your differences, you were punished for falling below some ridiculously high standard. Maybe it was because your parents told all their friends that you were gifted, and now it would be embarrassing for them to then say that their kid is struggling in school. Fast forward through 12 years of this in elementary school, and now I enter high school, freshly traumatized, but now also going through puberty, acne, everything else great about high school. And to make matters even worse, in terms of my parents' perception of me, as well as my perception of myself, with the fact that I was the only one of my gifted peer group in my school district to have gone to the normal high school rather than the gifted high school or the IB program, which is where all of the other gifted kids went, which is where all of my friends at the time went. So once again, I was dropped into new school anxiety mode. Oh, and did I tell you that my older sister was in the IB program, got perfect grades, and is now a doctor? Oh, and she's not gifted. So there's that. But me, the chronic underachiever, was just going to normal high school, which somehow was seen as some sort of failure. And so I just want to pause here and point out that if you just sort of zoom out and look at the story of a typical gifted child, I think that what you'll find is that the consistent themes throughout would be those of shame, disappointment, embarrassment, because you were labeled as gifted, and everything that ever happened to you for the rest of your childhood used that as a reference point. And how you felt never really mattered. Little did I know that all of these feelings, these really, really intense feelings that I was just bottling and blaming myself for, feelings that as a child I was not able to deal with properly, those were just the beginnings of depression and anxiety disorders that I deal with to this day and will probably deal with for the rest of my life. But instead of talking about and processing these feelings, this troubled 14-year-old boy discovered drugs as a coping mechanism. And that started an entirely new snowball for my life's timeline. And that's something that I talked about in a previous video, which I'll link in the description. Fast forward through high school, I end up finding my groove. I'm a full-on pothead, multiple suspensions, skipping class, going to class high. I'm a constant disappointment to my parents, and my grades start to suffer as usual. Not because it was hard, just because I didn't care. And then during a parent-teacher interview, my teacher tells my parents that, hey, Alex should probably consider alternative options because he's not going to college or university. Now, I don't know if you know how Asian families work, but for a lot of them, mine included, getting a university degree is not considered a significant achievement. It's the bare minimum. And so that was like the ultimate stamp that I was a failure, that this gifted kid can't even achieve the bare minimum. And instead of supporting me and asking me how I felt about anything, my parents leaned into me pretty hard. And honestly, I just wanted everyone off my back. So I kind of just said, fuck it, okay, I'll get good grades. Almost like an act of defiance. And so I aced the last 2 years of high school and got into a great university program just so that everyone would finally leave me alone. Which, when you think about it, is a crazy reason to do something so big. And it's something that I never should have done, to be thinking about it now. Rinse and repeat this cycle throughout university and my professional career, with each stage bringing me deeper and deeper into a pit of despair, because I'm not living for myself. I'm still living for what everyone expected me to be as a gifted kid. And the only way to cope with that was with more and more and harder drugs. But eventually, even the drugs are not enough, because I didn't have a reason for doing what I was doing. I wasn't doing it for myself. And that ever-present shadow of depression starts creeping up on you, taking over everything. Until you really just there's really only two options, which is stop doing what you're doing or stop existing. And so, luckily for me, all that happened was that I completely burnt out and blew up my life last year, which is also something I've made a video about, and I'll leave a link in the description. But that's my story, and that's how the gifted kid label messed me up pretty good. And the thing is, I'm not the only one whose life has been altered by this label. I know for a fact that there are thousands of gifted kids and gifted adults out there who are living their lives never feeling good enough, no matter what they manage to accomplish. You probably fall into this category if you're watching this. But the truth is, you never asked for this, and it placed expectations on you which were never fair to place on a child. You felt like you could never speak up, or when you did, no one listened to what you wanted to do, and you were told what you had to be: a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, whatever they thought a gifted person should be, is supposed to be. And now you are that thing. But no matter how far you get in that field, you still feel empty. And so you continue to push yourself to the absolute limit in order to satisfy the expectations of the people around you. Because that is the only way you know how to live. Because you think that once you get that next promotion or that next degree, or you start making X amount of money, that everything will start to feel right again, right? But the truth is that the only thing that you're going to find at the top of that hill is another steeper hill. So, okay, we get it. It sucks to be gifted, but what are you supposed to do about it now? How are you supposed to stop feeling this shitty about your life? I'm only just starting on this healing process, but what I do know is that the only way to start healing from the pain of a lost childhood is to start listening to and healing your inner child. The past versions of you which were hurt badly and whose pain was ignored. Because all anyone really wants to feel is heard, and the child within you is no different. They need their opportunity to cry and break down and scream and say, why is this happening to me? This isn't fair. Why are you doing this to me? And for someone to actually listen to them rather than dismiss their feelings. Except the person listening is you now. The pain you are feeling is grief, the same as losing a loved one, except this time the loved one is just the childhood version of you. You have to look inwards at the experiences of your inner child and allow yourself to properly feel the hurt that you experienced, whatever it was. For me, it was how my parents treated me. I didn't even know that my experience in the school system was abnormal until recently. I didn't even know how hurt I was until I actually started doing the introspective work and started talking about my feelings. Now, I'm not trying to tell you the answers or minimize what's happened to you if you feel like I had it easy. All I'm trying to say is that it's important to acknowledge the hurt that you are carrying rather than bottling it up and ignoring it, which is what you've been doing up until this point, right? Which is why you're watching this video. Maybe something about my personal experience resonates with you, and maybe hearing about how I'm dealing with it will help you deal with it yourself. Maybe just talking about it and sharing it here with you is helping me deal with it myself. I don't know. Everyone has their own stuff to deal with. And so, whoever you are out there listening to this, I want you to do me a favor and forgive yourself, because you were always good enough.